Welcome to episode 24 of Scorned by Muses. Eurocentrism. In January of 2026, we spent 3 weeks in Europe screening our film Goodbye Art, with stops in Berlin, Hamburg, Frankfurt, Dusseldorf, Cologne, Amsterdam, and London. We talked with many young artists and art students about the state of contemporary art and their anxieties about the future. We also saw a bunch of art along the way. This episode is a chronicle of our 3-week journey across the Atlantic. We left New York on Friday night and landed into a foggy Berlin on Saturday morning. The fog lent an air of romance and mystery to the city. I slept maybe an hour on the plane. The half-delirium of crossing time zones added to the strangeness. The hotel has a hard-to-place vintageness that I find cozy. 70s, 90s, maybe 2003. The concierge said he Googled me and watched my films. His name is Joshua. He speaks English with a vaguely Australian accent, though I assume his mother tongue to be German. We fought the urge to immediately go to sleep. We ate lunch at a Japanese noodle restaurant. The conversations at the adjoining tables were all conducted in English, tinged with various accents. I felt like I was in Manhattan. We dragged our sleep-deprived bodies around the city, a fashion boutique, a cafe. Fueled by espresso and sheer force of will, we visited the Schinkel Pavilion, an exhibition of fuzzy paintings by Issy Wood. The setting was more interesting than the paintings. The eccentric DDR architecture made the work better than it would have been otherwise. Boring pictures made to look good on Instagram. This one of a puffy gold jacket was kind of nice, though. We made our way back to the hotel and ate some Turkish takeout for dinner. It was fine. The hummus was a bit grainy, not the best I've had. Stomach full, I fell asleep. Woke up late the next day, still reeling from the jet lag. We ate lunch at the restaurant at the Hamburger Banhoff. Then we did a speed run of the museum. I remember loving the museum when I first visited in 2013. I remember feeling freed for the first time of my need for art to be about something. There were some large Ellsworth Kelly or other similar hard-edged canvases that really moved me. But this time around, I thought it was pretty shit. The museum was crowded. We went on a Sunday afternoon. Lots of parents with their screaming, mucus-filled children. The art was bad too. Lots of dirt. I was somewhat intrigued by the exhibit by Sadan Afif titled 5 Preludes. There were some recreations of Jeff Koons' vacuum cleaner sculptures, a model of the Pompidou, and a room filled with magazine and newspaper clippings related to Marcel Duchamp's fountain. There were also poems printed on the walls. I didn't have time to fully digest what was going on with this exhibit, but I suspect that if I had, I might have enjoyed it. We were pressed for time. I had to introduce the screening of my film Goodbye Art starting at 6:15. We got a bit mixed up with the trains and buses and scrambled into a cab. We got scammed a bit, but I didn't care. Time was more valuable than money at that point.
Thank you very much.
Okay, danke schön.
Sehr gerne, viel Spaß. Bis zum nächsten Mal.
Have a good evening.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you, see you, bye bye.
You want to say bye to the camera? Say bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Filmash Palace.
We arrived with some time to spare. We met Paul, the programmer, and Louis, the artist and filmmaker who had invited us. I more or less chugged a beer, and then felt quite dizzy. Some combination of exhaustion, stress, and stimulants collided with the German brew and sent me spinning. I drank a glass of water and slowly recovered, at least enough to be able to introduce the film. My name's Taylor. I'm the filmmaker. This is Art Boy 3, Goodbye Art. It's about 76 minutes long, and we'll be hanging out afterwards for a Q&A, and I don't know, we can get drinks and whatever if it continues after that, but thanks everyone for coming. We didn't watch the film though. We sat in the lobby and drank another beer with Paul. The Q&A was pretty standard. All the familiar questions came up. Then a man in the front row wearing an E-Flux hat asked the "check your privilege, white man" question, and I got flustered. I was too tired and too strung out to be patient. I lashed out a bit.
Hello, thank you very much. I really like the whole flow. I have some questions. Maybe that was like also kind of a self-reflection or self-critic. I get the cynicism. I mean, I really appreciate that. But I think also cynicism is a kind of white privilege that through looking through that eye. The old movie that we are like looking through your eye, and it's always like giving the voices to expert voices, mostly Western white bodies on one female and one on the Sunny is the BIPOC character that we are encountering it. And also you started with criticizing the female artists, also analyzing with the female artists. I think in the context of the the modern art world, I mean the desire of the modernity is a kind of desire of the patriarchy. And how do you self-critic or self-reflect on that gaze to yourself?
Yeah. Well, I would call these people and not bodies, first of all, just to just to add some subjectivity to these people. I guess I wonder if you could say a little bit more about what you think the fact that these people happen to be white or European or whatever. How does that for you invalidate the claims that they make?
I mean, all the experts that I see from the Western world, this is something like an all Western knowledge production. This is the feeling that
Western knowledge production.
Yeah, this is the feeling that I got since the beginning until the end. And my question is more like about the image critic, that how do you produce or how do you self-reflect on that?
What kind of other, you're saying like...
I'm just like saying like a kind of a position. You don't also have to defend it, just like open up.
I'm not defending. I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand your question more precisely in terms of what else you would put up against it.
I mean, I would love to also hear maybe more other diverse views or diverse bodies, not only the same voices that we used to get to listen in the mainstream media or something. That's the.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'm still trying to. I'm trying to understand the question, whether or not the question is like, okay, seems to be the question is like, okay, we heard from a bunch of white people talking about the history of European modernity, and why can't we hear from some people who are defending some other way of experiencing the world, which might be, I don't know, what are these other ways of experiencing the world, whether that's like some kind of folk practice or religious practice or I don't know, Hinduism or something like that. Like what are these other kinds of views that you would want to see? That's what I'm trying to get at. Or is the problem merely that these people are white? That's what I'm trying to understand.
It's not the problem, but I'm also not saying like any kind of a folk figure that you should put in. I'm just asking for through the knowledge production, who are the subjects who are saying or talking about these things. But I got my answer. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can quickly say that, look, we live in a modern world in which capital dominates every single facet of our lives. Every aspect of our lives is dominated by the totalizing system of capital, right, and of capitalism. And the figures that I have chosen to highlight in the film are people who are trying to deal with that history, the history of the world, in those terms. And that's the way I see things. I mean, that's why I've chosen that. I mean, I'm a Marxist. I believe in sort of the total transformation of all of human reality, like in and through the revolution of the global socialist party, right, or the global working class. I think that I'm interested in freedom, right? I'm interested in that kind of freedom, the kind of world historical transformatory freedom in which we become the sort of subject of the world rather than just being sort of dominated by ourselves abstractly. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering your question at all, but
this is great. This is something that we couldn't hear in the movie, but
yeah.
Now it's clear.
Yeah, okay, good.
At long last, you can now watch the full film Goodbye Art with all of its white bodies over at patreon.com/The Yearbook Committee. We left Berlin with spirits low. A 2-hour train to Hamburg. We ate lunch on arrival, an Asian fusion restaurant. We were duped by the AI photos on the website. Microwaved airplane food. Some orange gelatinous concoction that they called cashew sauce, drenched over half-frozen vegetables and dried chicken chunks. An espresso, then back to the hotel for a bit of work. Steph napped. We took a taxi to the Art Academy where Anna greeted us with chocolate. Hey. What's up? Are you Anna?
Yes.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
I was going to kill the camera, but we were just getting a little
Finally.
vlogging over here.
Beautiful.
The cinema at the school was very nice. Anna told us it had been recently renovated, and the projection was excellent. It was exciting to see the film projected on such a nice setup. The movie has never looked better. After the film concluded, our hosts Henry and Anna were a bit timid to kick off the Q&A, but the students immediately chimed in with their questions. A couple of film students challenged me on the formal qualities of the film, which I thought was interesting, but the questions quickly veered into other territory, and the room took on the feeling of a seminar. It felt good and productive, and it was clear that the conversation which I was putting forward is not one that the students are used to having. Many students seem to make work today in an ahistorical void, without much of a real critical understanding for why one ought to make art. It is taken for granted that art is a necessary practice, but its necessity is underspecified. The discussion went on for at least 2 hours, and there was some productive dialogue between me and one of the HFBK professors, who was sympathetic towards my notion that formerly avant-garde styles of art making have been neutralized and made academic, and that this is ironic because it is precisely this problem of decadent and cliché academic art which the avant-garde of the 19th and 20th centuries had erected itself against. Artists today must reject the current academic paradigm if they want to make work which can break free of sterile, boring clichés. The artist must rebel against the falsity of contemporary art. Contemporary art is false because it falls below the potential contained within the reality that it seeks to objectify aesthetically. Art must be as radical as reality itself. it must objectify the tension between the world as it is and the world as it could be.
Hello. We are currently departing from the screening. That was very
Yes.
successful.
Oh yeah?
Enjoyable discussion, a little bit overwhelming, but also
A little bit
motivating.
overwhelming.
Yes.
Also motivating.
Very motivating.
I love that.
think it makes you insecure and motivated.
Yeah, a feeling
Yeah.
of responsibility, but also of a bright future. And also the feeling of nothing matters in a negative sense of the word, of the phrase, and also then the positive one.
Totally. What do you think of the film?
I enjoyed it. It actually reminded me of like older TV programs where people talk about shit like this on TV and it wasn't like a big deal.
How's the clouds in the States or in New York?
The clouds?
The clouds like your or like
The clout?
the sort of recognition you get. Because I was quite happy about the crowds that we got here.
Oh yeah, I was surprised at how I slept well for the first time this trip. We had coffee and croissants at the hotel, and then made our way to the MMK to see the Trisha Donnelly show, which our friend Punch, a student at the Stadelshula, told us had infuriated her. Does kind of feel like ruins, but you know that they're manufactured ruins. It feels as though it has some kind of architectural significance, like was part of some ancient temple or something. It's a very austere, somber, kind of meditative show. I think I like it. There's some really interesting, really subtle choices being made here. The frame of the projector, if you look at the projector, it's off axis up there. It's like now pointing down, it's like this off axis. And you can see there's like a really subtle outline of this rhombus. And then within the rhombus is a perfect rectangle that the image is projecting. And what this is a really strange, subtle, interesting choice that I kind of really like. If you were going to just do it straightforward, you would mount the projector right here and just point it straight at it. Instead, it's at this really strange off-axis angle that there's no real reason for it, but that's kind of why I like it. This is the weirdest inclusion, the weirdest choice. What the hell is this about? Some really interesting stuff going on in this show. Actually, I really like it. I think that people who don't like this kind of work suffer from a lack of imagination. I think that you have to have an imagination to enjoy minimalist work, because it
is I would say it most aggressively forces you to open your imagination because it withholds any kind of referentiality. But for me, this show opens my imagination and leaves things very open-ended in a way that I find exhilarating. Maybe exhilarating is a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think that Punch, when we were talking to her at dinner last night, we'll talk to her more, she found that open-endedness very frustrating, I think.
So it was very Sphinx-like.
Sphinx-like, yeah. That there's some riddle. And I don't think there is a riddle, you know? I do think that it is what it is. And maybe what it is unsatisfying. But for me, I think that there's some subtlety. I mean, this is also mysterious over here. That line between legibility and illegibility. When something is hovering on that line between legibility and illegibility, or figuration and abstraction. And this can happen in like a David Lynch film, for example, where you don't know what's happening. There's an ambiguity which opens the imagination. Or in Miles Davis, like Bitches Brew, or his sort of electric period. It flirts with total abstraction, total noise, total chaos, total abandonment of any kind of melody, but then it kind of comes back in, and there's a push and pull in a really satisfying way that starts to open up possibilities. That maybe music could be this other thing. Maybe music could penetrate into something else. I mean, I know I usually don't talk about music, and that's because I don't really have much of an education in music. And maybe the music heads out there will tell me I'm just totally off base. But for me, I see a similarity between like Miles Davis and David Lynch, for example. Or this, in its own weird way. This desk over here to me is a very Lynchian moment.
It's very surreal, actually.
It's very surreal and very spooky and haunting, which this show feels haunted a bit. Seeing it in here by ourselves with just these guards that kind of like flit past. There's all these walls, but then you see a guard kind of just like flit past behind a wall. And it gives it an air of paranoia. As if you're kind of seeing something that you're not really supposed to be seeing. And that you have to kind of, this is like a noir film. This show is like a noir film.
We know we're here, we know they're there, and they're just like always just kind of peeking.
Yeah, I feel like I'm fucking in a Dashiell Hammett novel all of a sudden or something. Like I'm a hard-boiled private eye. This desk and those evergreens. Because the rest of this feels alien and ancient, right? It feels like, it's like it's from another civilization. That's either an ancient Earth civilization that we no longer have access to, and that we can only speculate as to what these artifacts, how they were incorporated into a society. or they have been transported here from across the Milky Way, and they're just these strange objects which we have to kind of make sense of. But the desk and the evergreens are things we can make sense of, right? We know what a desk is, and we know that those evergreens, how they're typically employed as Christmas or festive decorations of some kind. And so these two things, in context with one another and in context with the rest of the alien structures, makes a familiar object suddenly strange, unfamiliar, even threatening. We met Punch at Stadelshula around 6 p.m., and she explained to us what had irked her about the Donnelly show.
Yeah, like this whole thing, I was like having a little bit of moment of like reflecting with myself, like why do I have like a very strong feeling about that show? And in a way, I think it's because like first of all, like sometimes I think like art is like bullshit.
Yeah.
But like sometimes it's not, and it doesn't mean that I have to like categorize everything as like bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's like at the end of the day, it's about like believing and not like generalizing. Because like sometimes this like kind of like generalized like state of mind kind of like come in, and you're kind of like, fuck, what the fuck is this? It kind of like, it makes this like, at some point like in the opening, it provokes like the silence and like the unmutiness or like this kind of like sphinx-like thing of the show that makes me feel like I just wanted to run around and like smash things and like acting like stupid kids and stuff. And yeah, I guess like not a lot of shows these days like makes you feel like that.
Yeah.
And like most of the shows just like
You really hated it.
whatever. It's
Yeah.
like whatever. Like I mean like negative affect is better than whatever, right?
Yeah.
I was going to ask what you felt the documentary had to say to, for example, a young, I don't know, South African or Nigerian or Thai artist. And I realized a bit provocative because it's a question of scope, but then you responded to someone else by saying that you felt this was about art in general and that actually it started in the West and then it got exported everywhere. Which I also take, I'm not sure, I don't know how true that is. So I would ask the question again, what do you think the documentary would have to say is why a Nigerian artist very vulnerable?
I think it has the same thing to say to an American artist or a European artist or an artist anywhere on the globe.
But it did not at any point reference their history, grapple with, because it's really in Western history.
I think, well, and this is where, I'll get in trouble, but I think their history is Western history. That, in other words, the history of modernity is that modernity, bourgeois society, which began in Europe, not for any particular reason, but just as a pure set of contingencies, and was exported across the globe, and the globe became modernized. Every single person on the globe is participating in a global system of capitalism. They are. And so the process of overcoming that system needs to be global in scope.
But if you think that's true, and I take that you think that's true, why not then grapple with the specifics of what was happening in Nigeria in the 60s or in the 50s, or what was happening in South Africa in the 90s? Because surely we agree that what was happening in the US in the 50s and 60s is not analogous to what was happening in Nigeria in the 50s and 60s, no?
It is not what, sorry.
It's not analogous. We can't just take one and go like, this happening here must apply everywhere. Or, the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, that must be relevant to what's happening everywhere in the world. No?
I think it is, actually. I think that what modernity produces and what the potential for overcoming.
But do you think that works in the opposite direction too? Do you think that then, for example, the third wave of decolonization in Nigeria, which then produced a very particular kind of modernist work, would you say that was then also influencing what was happening in the US at the time? Or you think it's a one direction thing?
I mean, I'm not trying to talk about specific sort of art movements per se.
Neither.
But what I'm talking about is a world historical global necessity in which every living human being is implicated and has a responsibility as human beings to realize freedom, to realize a sort of world transformatory situation that is beyond like anything that exists today, right? I think what you seem to be hedging towards is this is like a very Western Enlightenment colonial perspective, which which is unable to take account of these other non-Western perspectives. And yet I think that the struggle for socialism, which is what I'm interested in politically, and is what I think that modernist art points towards sensuously, aesthetically, and materially, not in an explicitly political way, but that registers a certain kind of discontent. And that, sure, this happens elsewhere. And the reason that I didn't go to Nigeria or South Africa is this is a self-funded film and I live in New York City and everyone that I talked to is in New York, artist or lived in New York.
The foremost Africanist art is in New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of ultimate African.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I would say that the people that I chose are people who, for me, tell a specific history about modernism, which I'm interested in, which is one informed by the Frankfurt School, and that is one which I think, at least my estimation of it before making the film, points towards a sort of radical utopian potential, which maybe the figures in the film ultimately shy away from at the end.
Last comment and then we can move on. My perspective again is that the scope of questions that you asked to these people and the specific frustrations you had in the film were informed partly by you also not asking about other histories. Because if you did, the questions that were asked behind might not have even come up. Because there are people who are making art. I'm not saying, they had day jobs or whatever, but even in the West, there are a lot of artists who are not sitting in this history that you mentioned. And hold on just very quickly, and also are not moving in this grand march of socialism. I mean, the futurists famously were fascists, and they are part of the history of modernism. Of course. There are the stockists who sound very similar to what you are talking about, who are still alive today, who you don't talk to. There are a lot of, and again, this is not about, this is enlightenment. I am part of the table, pro-enlightenment. Great, enlightenment, great. This is not called, this is a Western, colonial, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It is, you are trying to tell a particular story, and you're interested in a particular history, and because of that interest, it feels like the document has hemmed itself in. And it sounds like you don't want to hem yourself in,
Yeah.
but you have.
Yeah, so I would actually, and I mean this is a genuine question, and not as like a provocation. What do you think is the precise story or the precise sort of history or maybe counter narrative, or maybe not even counter, but parallel or slightly off-axis narrative that is missing from the film that you would have liked to have seen?
It is that there is not one history of art. I think this is something that most people have put behind. There is not one history of art. And that in many parts of the world, there were many different people who were drawing from many different lineages. This is also like I was one time from Ghana. And before I was coming here, some conversation with some artists from elsewhere. And this was in 2021, so this was still in the period of we're trying to move away from Western influences, blah, blah, blah. And I was making abstract work, and so they asked, well, how do you grapple with the fact that abstraction has such a Western history? And I'm like, I have never drawn on Western art for my lineage. There are so many other cultures that we're producing, and this is something also interesting, that what gets to be called art is incredibly important, because today they're very interested in social, what did we call it, relational aesthetics, we're interested in installations, we're interested in performance as art and all of that. But like if you had talked to Africanists, for example, they could tell you about Festac in Lagos and in Dakar, where they were doing things that people here were super not interested in. But today, people would look at that and call that art. They did not call it art because they didn't need to, but it's a performing a function that today we think of as art. There are so many other issues that if you are interested in what art can do, you might want to go there.
So I think that this gets back around to my point of what I was trying to, why I hone into historically specific concept of bourgeois art, and that it's only from the perspective of bourgeois modernity that we can look back at all of these disparate kinds of practices, which to the people who are making those objects in Europe and all over the world would not have necessarily considered themselves artists, right? That they might have been.
In this context, they considered themselves artists. For example, for Festac, the logo, and this is something we study here in this school now under the art history lecture, the logo for Festac is a Berlin bronze that is held in the British Museum. It's considered art. It's just that the people here would not be interested in what is happening there and call that art. I don't know whether that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not like they didn't think of it as art, they thought of it as art. Here they didn't think of it as art. Sorry, it's just an important distinction.
Right. That's helpful. I mean, I think that what I was trying to draw out in my notion was that, we have all these different kinds of cultural practices throughout history, whether these are dances or making masks or making cave paintings or making a mosaic on a wall or whatever, that from the perspective of the present, from the perspective of modernity, we can look back and subsume all of these things under one humanistic practice, which we call art, which would have been understood in those specific contexts in radically different ways. I understand that you're talking about something which is happening in the period of modernity, outside of a US, Western, European context, which was dismissed in the West because of its specific geographic locality, and I would, not subscribe to those people. Right, I would call those practices art, of course.
you think about, there was one guy, a student who was from Ghana, who had a lot to say about the film.
Yeah.
And then he challenged me on this overly Western, American-centric view of the history of modernism.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also thinking about that. We just saw that queer modernism show. And I was thinking, like, that these kinds of arguments against the film are just distractions from the main point, because the artists who were modernists, who happened to be queer, whatever that means, were participating in the same project. And were expressing the same society and expressed the same contradictions and therefore the same potentials. Their racial, national, and sexual identity, like that, really only seems important from the perspective of the present, because the perspective of the present is a perspective which comes after the failure of socialism. How would the post-colonial world, how would that trajectory have happened had the socialist revolution happened? Had the socialist revolution been successful in Europe, what would that have meant for the rest of the world? Right? If the rest of the world was going to rebel against socialism, they would be doing so in a backward and anti-human way, clinging to their cultural particularity, clinging to their traditions, which in almost all cases were hierarchical and superstitious and unfree. Everywhere,
I'm a little bit
in every fucking continent of the world.
Now.
Works of art that I've seen, the most moved I've been by works of art recently have both been like identity works in some sense. Both films made by black men about the black experience, but also both of them told in very like optimistic, open-ended ways. Because I think the one that like made me cry, like bawl like a baby, was the Arthur Jaffa video at the MCA that's set to the Kanye song, and it's like showing alternating between scenes of brutalization of black people and sort of black excellence. And I think it does this thing that I keep telling people, like it objectifies the tension between what is and what could be, because you're seeing like Michael Jordan soaring through the fucking air, James Brown like wow dancing, and then you're seeing people like beaten to death, literally like in the same like juxtapose, you know, and you see wow this like ecstatic utopian potential of human freedom, human excellence, and its utter like brutalization, you know, and the contradiction between those two moments is really, really powerful without actually having to like explain it or say anything. It's just like showing the images in sequence. It's like really moving. And this one does something similar. It's much more muted and subtle, but I mean, it's like it shows you a beautiful world, but it's a world also like filled with pathos, and this kind of like, I mean, it's critical of modernism, but critical of modernism in like a way that points beyond it, in the same way that I would be critical of modernism. You know, it's critical of modernism sort of from an Africanist perspective, but that isn't reactionary. Because I think a lot of the contemporary post-colonial perspective, if you will, is actually a reactionary perspective, and that wants to like reclaim some kind of lost tribal identity or something like that, which actually can't be reclaimed. The only way out is through and is forward. You know, and that's not to discount any of these the like value of any of these traditions, but these traditions can be also incorporated into something which transcends them in the same way that modernist traditions can be. There's like dinosaurs out here. Oh, I think they don't like the wombat. We arrived at the ateliers in Amsterdam. We had been invited to screen our film there by an artist named Tobias Graan. We dropped our bags and Tobias took us to an art show in a former brothel. The setting was interesting and presented some potentially fruitful curatorial opportunities. Unfortunately, those opportunities were largely missed. The show's curator, Benjamin, insisted that the show had been thrown together and that the curatorial decisions were somewhat arbitrary, which felt like either a total shame or a complete cop-out.
We opened last week, and basically picked out a selection of artists we worked with earlier. And, it's a video installation by Ferdinand Waas. He had a residency in Armenia, and Pirate Bay moved in 2015 from Denmark to Armenia, and so we basically all streaming from Armenia. And he had this idea to invite, during this residency he stayed for like 5 nights, and he invited every day another grinder date, and he asked them what would their #1 film recommendation be. And the next day he watched that film recommendation with the other grinder hookup.
Okay.
Because streaming is a solution to not everything being available in every region, which is then he made this parallel with queerness is also not available in every region.
Yeah, these grinders seem to have some like interesting taste.
Hey,
Totally.
they have good taste,
Yeah,
right?
they have good taste, right? Yeah.
Oh, wow, this is steep. Is it a movie?
It's just the light flickering. Now, are these like poems or something? Do you know what the text are?
Looks like it. It's in Dutch though.
It's in Dutch, yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, it's like a little door. Yeah.
Thing is, in Romania, everyone is this skilled because they learn these things to paint like in primary school. They have this kind of classes from 6 years on. You learn really how to classical paint and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of Romanian people here studying in Amsterdam and they're in The Hague, and they're like able to. They all have this skill to really paint realistically, hyper realistically,
That's amazing.
they're like, why this is not that hard to do? Why don't everyone can do this? But everyone in the Netherlands like, well, what the fuck? How can you paint this realistically?
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I mean, it's painted from a photograph. Seems
Looks like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's like
Always
almost.
begs the question for me.
Yeah.
I said that always begs the question for me.
Why?
Like, why paint? If it's just a photograph, why paint it? You know?
When I saw this before the opening or doing install, this one seems like the work in it that weirded me out the most because of the contextuality of this work.
Yeah.
Because this feels, it's so huge and it's so out of place to me.
Yeah.
Why is there a student age person on the phone with an outdated iPhone in here? You know, which might be a good thing, I don't know, but it definitely
does something.
disturbs me. Like, it bothers me, I think it's better words.
Yeah, you said it in the first episode, it bothers you.
Yeah. That she reads like a sex worker, like an underage, like vulnerable young woman.
If you read it like that.
But that's not.
I mean, we're in a brothel. Why wouldn't you read
But
it?
I feel like it's obvious that she wouldn't be, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
No. Really, with the phone and stuff, it really feels like there's some sort of, you immediately make the link of some business or something, and then
like it reads to me like it has nothing to do with where we are, which might be an okay thing, but it has, like, I'm trying to draw those connections.
Yeah.
Well, the
combine them.
The neutrality of the expression
also
allows you to project anything on.
That's completely fine.
Oh, it's it's cozy in here.
There's a bit of a different smell.
Yeah.
Removed a phone and a trash bin. But other than that, everything's left in here. Yeah. So I'm quite pleased that this space was allowed to stay.
Yeah, no, this definitely.
Yeah. I can show this picture.
Oh shit.
We arrived in London, gave a talk in the morning. Then in the late afternoon, we went to the Barbican. I love it there. Part of it is nostalgia. The cozy, brutalist interiors remind me of the schools and public buildings I visited in my youth. I miss those dimly lit interiors and the solidness and warmth of brick and concrete. The more recent move towards glass and steel is understandable, but it lacks the coziness of brutalism. The Barbican feels utopian, a relic of our lost optimism about the future. The building offers a dream of a truly communal space in which life, work, and art seamlessly blend. I begin to imagine myself living in one of the concrete towers, in a modest but well-designed apartment. I spend the day making calculations that I hope will synthesize a new species of orchid to populate the estate's lush gardens. In the evening, I come down to the cafeteria to eat a delicious and healthy meal prepared by my neighbors who are serving their weekly kitchen duty. I thank them for the meal. Tomorrow evening, they will thank me for performing the same duty. I drink wine and relax in the large community space. I talk with friends about the latest breakthroughs in remote neural communications technology. We make our way over to the auditorium where the community orchestra is playing a new program of music composed by one of the residents of Tower Delta. She has employed a new set of instruments specifically designed for the finale. The music is like nothing I've heard before, sublime in its beauty and force. It fills me with optimism about tomorrow. But that dream, once vivid for many, has become a dim memory, replaced by the cold reality of tired and lonely workers seeking temporary refuge from the rain in one of the worn-out, mismatched armchairs. The building's surfaces show signs of wear. Some of the lights flicker, crying out to be replaced. Decades of entropy have worn away the utopian sheen. But I can still feel it, an architectural dream of a world which architecture alone cannot fulfill. I'm committed to this political project or political ideal of socialism, but I'm not actually interested in politics as such. I think people who are interested in politics are usually only interested in power or vengeance. I'm interested in freedom. I really just want to live in a world where me and my friends don't have to go to work, and we can play all day and use our imagination.